Hi everyone, it's Joey Remenyi from seekingbalance.com.au. I have a question I find it really challenging when I'm meditating or in a quiet place and then I'm noticing my tinnitus sounds more and they hook me in. This is my biggest challenging moment. And they've said throughout the day when I'm out and about, I don't notice my tinnitus at all. So it really is limited to these quiet places such as meditating. So first of all, I think this is a really great question, and I'm sure lots of people are going to relate to this challenge. So I want to say bring it to our peer support calls because it would be really interesting to hear how different people tackle this and how different people unhook and diffuse from that excessive focus upon the sound when there is no distractions, where consciously, and it's quite courageous and brave to meditate in the context of having a chronic symptom or chronic sensation that is something we just don't want to pay attention to, and we don't want to prioritize, and we don't want to add extra stress loops. And so some people will really avoid meditation for all of those reasons, and it's understandable. I don't tend to call it meditation necessarily. I just call it quiet sitting or body scanning. And for me, I think that also takes some of the pressure off, because there can be like a lot of connotations and associations with what meditation should or shouldn't be. When we're just sitting quietly in our body and noticing, a lot of wisdom comes from that. And there's a lot of freedom to just be oneself, be in any body posture. You could be standing. I love the Rocksteady program has a lot of different foot positions you can use, which can also be great because you're getting extra vestibular input and extra proprioceptive input, which means as you're in that quietly noticing, observing, and meditative practice, you're actually allowing the body to have more sensory inputs in the administrative desk, in the executive load function of the brain. So instead of just sitting there with not much going on, maybe except some emotions and thoughts and tinnitus, and so it's like, well, what do I focus on? You're actually boosting your body scanning and proprioceptive and vestibular inputs, which is giving the brain a lot more things to process and attend to. So that administration desk, instead of just having a huge pile of tinnitus and not much else to think about, it can feel all consuming. You're actually starting to give it more proprioceptive information from the feet, information from the hips, information from the shoulders. And again, that's why sometimes body scanning with a sway or a rocking movement, and again, that's all in the Rocksteady program, you're giving more vestibular input and more proprioceptive input. So the brain just simply has more sensory information to sort through and use. So that's just some tricks on how you can keep the body scanning a whole body process instead of just focusing on one signal. I've said this recently in another video, but if we say that at any given point while we're body scanning and in a meditation space, and in my opinion, meditation is a body scan. If we're not in the body and we're just floating out disconnected to the body, I don't believe that's really technically meditation. I think that's maybe daydreaming or just a different mental space. So for me, body scanning is a process that is fundamentally linked to feeling and sensing the body. And that's coming from my very strong yoga background of what the yogis describe to be meditation. So it comes from the body, and then we arrive at these very peaceful, non-attached mental states through the body, not through dissociating from the body. So that's a side note. But if we say that while we're in our meditation, our quiet sitting, our body scanning, whatever language is comfortable, that there are a million data points for the brain to organize. And we've got lots of inputs coming in. We've got all the media marketing of all the wars and all the news and all the politics and economics. We've got all these points coming in of the world around us, and they are things for our body to process and digest. And whether we're aware of it or not, they are things that are entering us even while we're sitting quietly. And so it can be really useful to notice your beliefs and thoughts that are ricocheting around your inner world with regards to our economic and political and cultural landscape. There's a lot of data points there to be organized and lovingly integrated, metabolized. We've got all of our just skin receptors, feeling of skin and touch, and that brings us into proprioceptive and orienting, where is my ear relative to my shoulder? Where is my shoulder relative to my elbow? Where is my elbow relative to my wrist? And so on and so forth. I can notice the location of my cheeks, my lips, my jaw, my lower teeth, my upper teeth. There are so many data points to notice in the physical realm. Then we've got our emotional realm. You know, what emotional data points am I noticing? Is there irritation? Is there frustration? Is there I'm not good enough? And so if I just think about what the tinnitus itself might be eliciting for you is some of those undigested emotional states that your body is still wanting to digest, metabolize, and integrate. So you might notice that while I'm very challenged by the tinnitus, there's actually a whole opportunity for me to be with feelings of frustration, feelings of failure, feelings of hatred, feelings of self-rejection, very, very old emotional patterns that haven't yet had time to be digested. And this is the perfect opportunity while meditating. So there's lots and lots of data points. We've got all of our sensory information, smells, taste, external sounds. We've got our eyes closed, so it's mostly visual darkness, but you never know. There still might be some visual input while we sit there. We've got our breath we can notice, our emotions, our thoughts, our beliefs. There's a lot going on. So let's just say there's a million data points. One of those data points is tinnitus. So it's really important to keep perspective that you've got all this information that you can allow into your world for digestion, metabolization, and integration. And if you're stuck focusing on that one data point, you're not really growing or getting anywhere to where beyond where you are. So it's like, I think the definition of sanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. So the more we get stuck in a repeating pattern, the more we get stuck in a repeating pattern. So we're actively looking at shifting up the experience by noticing where our attention goes, noticing which data points are coming in and we're flipping it off and being dismissive of it. And so possibly just allowing your attention to be more broadly expansive and noticing if there is a repeated pattern of that challenge, that frustration, there's an emotional landscape there, or maybe a story and a narrative that is associated with the tinnitus. And that could be where you could have some very productive integration of bringing loving kindness and compassion to noticing, embodying, and feeling that move through your body. And I would recommend using the Rocksteady program tools of locating the feelings in your body. So while it might be initiated by that feeling of tinnitus, you might go, oh, I just feel it in the pit of my stomach. Give it color, give it texture, and really breathe through the embodied experience of that emotional pattern and that mental thought, worry, frustration, whatever it is, the belief, and actually allow it to be digested and completed so it doesn't need to be repeating. So a couple of things. One is sort of walk into the pit of the fire and feel the discomfort and actually complete the process of digesting it. And the second is the tinnitus is just 1/1,000,000th. There's so many other data points for you to spend time with, get to know and lean into and get curious about, that you don't have to keep revisiting that tinnitus signal and get stuck there. So I hope that's useful, but bring this to our live Q&A calls for our monthly Rocksteady peer group conversation. I'd be really interested to hear how other people do it. I might finish by saying how do I do it? So when I'm in my quiet sitting and I notice unpleasant sensations, which may or may not be tinnitus, it could be anything, but let's say it's my tinnitus and I notice it. First of all, I sort of go, oh, okay, that's interesting, because I don't hear it very often. But my go-to is very rapidly to say, for this moment, I'm going to have compassion with all of my tinnitus members who are struggling. And I breathe outwardly toward them, compassion. I wish them peace. I wish them contentment. I wish them deep personal growth through their experience of tinnitus. And I share that experience of tinnitus. The moment I notice it, I redirect that out to my community in loving kindness, compassion, and warmth towards all people experiencing tinnitus at that point in time. And I find very quickly I shift away from it and on to my next thing. So it becomes like a very short experience that I quickly redirect out into sharing the load with other people. So that's my little trick that works for me. So it's a bye for now. Great question. Keep them coming. And it's seekingbalance.com.au. Please join our Rocksteady program if you're interested in starting this deep dive and this self-study journey to learn more about your brain, your body, and how you organize all of these inputs. To get the best out of whatever it is you've been born with. So it's a bye for now.